2016 Olympics are over. And this is the last Sunday in August that we have, this whole month, we've been playing with the book, Florence Scovel Shinn's The Game of Life and How to Play It. So we've been playing games, mind games, and all sorts of games, watching them on TV and so forth. This book was written in 1925. It's one of the classics, metaphysical classics. So if you haven't read it, or you don't know that anything about it other than what I've been sharing with you, you need to get your own copy, because it's just a small little book, but there are so many gems in it that there's no way I could have shared all of them with you. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead and get this one and see what other games you can play with it. The topic this morning that I have chosen is one of the chapters actually in the book, and it's called Perfect Self-Expression and Divine Design. So I picked Divine Design as our topic this morning. Florence was one of the masters, one of the founders or pioneers of our New Thought movement. And one of the things that strikes me when you read this, and that is evident in many of the first metaphysicians, was this air of confidence. When they spoke their word, it wasn't wishy-washy at all. They knew what they were saying, and when she is speaking her word, she expected a response. And so she says in here, she talks about making a demand. Making a demand. And here is her example of a demand. Infinite Spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius inside now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. I don't know about you, but this spoke to me big time, because we've been, like I said, we've been doing this prosperity class, is now finished, and we're to make our vision for our life and be very specific and know what it is you want. And I've just been still saying, God, tell me the plan. What is the vision? And it's interesting, I have a little side note here in the fact that in my mail this week, I got that big package envelope that you brought me, Ann. Inside it is the full, complete program of Mary Morrissey's Dream Builders that has been gifted to me. And so obviously, and I thought, oh yeah, good. So I opened up, the first thing was to say, get the design, get the idea of your perfect life. I said, oh gosh, I still need to work with this. It's not going away. Anyway, so I'm going to be going through that process and sharing that with you too, I'm sure, in times to come. But what really I'd like to highlight about Florence and what she gives us in this book at this moment is the fact that we are to demand. What is it? Show me now. What is it that you are to have? This genius that is within, this God self that is in, how are you to show up? What are you going to be doing with me? She goes on to say the perfect plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. She calls this the square of life, which brings perfect happiness. I thought that was interesting. The square of life, the four, includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. That gives us the happiness that we want in life. And so we make this demand. We're saying, God, we have to recognize that we are powerful agents. And we need to use that power, expect that power to be with us. And like I put in the thought for the week, we need to get, like Emerson said, our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. Because that can sure come up, time and time again. Last month we were playing with Wallace Wattles' book, The Science of Getting Rich. And Mary Morrissey, Michael Beckwith, all of these mystics in our New Thought arena are saying the same thing, have been for eons, for years. They've been saying the same thing, which is whatever you want in your life is not going to happen unless you become that thing itself in consciousness first. So you have to get up, you have to raise yourself to that vibrational level that whatever it is that you have not yet experienced in your physical manifestation of earth effects, you have to raise your consciousness. Consciousness comes first. Then the outpicturing of what you want will show up. And when we do that, when we honestly just feel, because we know the very first step is awareness. What am I thinking? And we know what we're thinking by how we're feeling, right? And so what am I feeling? Am I feeling great or am I feeling not so great? Why is that? And so we check in constantly to know, where am I at in consciousness? Because whatever I'm doing in consciousness, that's going to be outpictured in my life. So am I going to be happy with my results? Then I need to be aware, and I need to be dominant in my thinking of what it is I want, the positive things in life, right? And so in the book, she talks about the fact that the Bible itself is just a whole study on the way of thinking, on a way of life, on consciousness. And many of the things in there are on a subliminal basis. All of these allegories and the stories, the parables that Jesus taught. He wasn't talking about fish. He wasn't talking about sheep. He wasn't talking about those specific things that, we think it could be. There's a deeper level than that. And the more you read the Bible, the deeper you're going to be getting into the metaphysical interpretation for yourself, because you are going to be going up on a higher vibrational level. So it's an unending story. Well, she talks about the fact that, and actually Mary Morrissey talked about David and Goliath. And the example of David and Goliath in the Bible is that she said that the Bible is an instruction book on how to release our soul or subconsciousness from bondage. It's an instruction book on how to release our soul or subconscious from bondage that we place upon ourselves, right? So she said, every man is David who slays Goliath. Goliath is represented by our mortal thinking, by our not enough then comparisons and all that business. With the little white stone, and then she put in parentheses, which is faith. So David slew the giant, which is our mortal thinking, our less than thinking, with the little stone of faith. When we seek to do God's will, we broaden our consciousness. We allow ourselves to be infilled with this infinite being that we are. And it is love. It is all good. And we just continue to let go, let go. She said, God's will be done, God's pattern, not man's. God's pattern, not man's. And she quoted an author in the 1800s. I looked him up, Maeterlinck, Maeterlink. He was in the 1800s. He said, man is God afraid. Ooh. Now, you get a picture of God. Can you see God afraid? No. That would be a scary thought. And so we go back time and time again in our teachings that there is one power, one presence. It is God. It is love. It is joy. It is peace. And we are one with it. That's a continual affirmation, knowing, confirmation that we are one with this one and not separate. And Florence said that the fear and worry are deadly sins. Fear and worry are deadly sins. And it's interesting because she gives a definition of sin. Now we, in our New Thought line of thinking, have the word sin, we put it as missing the mark. We use it as the archery term. Sin is just missing the mark, right? Well, she gives it a different definition. She says, whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Whatsoever is not of faith is sin. A lot of sins, aren't there? That mark, that bullseye, that target is narrow. It's right on course. It's right on center. And faith, demanding the divine design of our lives, will keep us hitting the target. But what is life? What is life? Life is a constant course correction. A constant course correction, right? Because we're constantly missing the mark. And so we are aware of our thoughts, we're aware of what's happening in our lives based on our thoughts and feelings, and we course correct. I always like to think of the babies, the little ones, when they start to walk. You see them, watch. They get up and they fall back down. Or they do it all sorts of different ways. You know, some of them get up on their toes and all four legs and they crawl differently, or they do all myriad of different ways to walk. Now, have you ever seen a toddler, when they fall, look at somebody else and blame them for it? Or look at themselves and say, dang it, I'm never going to do that again because it didn't work. They don't do it, do they? They just continue to keep up, keep at it, and try again, try another tact. And that's really our nature. Our natural nature. But when we get to be an adult with this rational mind, then we start evaluating everything and thinking, oh, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do that again. And and we blame somebody else. Well, if you had only not done this, then that's what made me do this. Florence tells us every disease is caused by a mind not at ease. There is no use asking anyone, what's the matter with you? We might as well say, who's the matter with you? Unforgiveness is the most prolific cause of disease. In its train are endless ills. Man's only enemies are within himself. The enlightened man endeavors to perfect himself. His work is with himself. It's like that toddler, that baby. It just keeps working on getting back up. To send out goodwill and blessings to every man, and the marvelous thing is that if he blesses a man, then no other man has power to harm him. So we look and bless what we send out, we're blessing. There is peace on earth for him who sends goodwill to man. Man's only enemies are within him. The enlightened man endeavors to perfect himself. We endeavor to go back to center, go back to center. To me, that says, just like we had this morning at 9:30, you're welcome to join us at any time. Wonderful meditation. To go back to center, to go back to the clarity, the anchoring, the light of what we are. Every time. I believe we are here. We've been placed here. The Spirit has been placed here in these body suits on this earth that has this gravitational pull that keeps us here for a reason. For a reason to be able to dispense our good. Remember, that's what the definition of humanity is, the dispensation of divine gifts. So we are here to dispense our gifts. But that means we must have fearless faith to do what is ours to do. Nobody else's. Can't compare. We can't look at somebody else. Those toddlers that are learning to walk, they don't look at somebody else and say, oh, I did it wrong and I better do it that way. They do it their own way. We know that. And it's so interesting because the little ones, they come with no instruction booklet because they're all individual. And just when we figure out their pattern, just when we figure out, okay, this is nap time, this is this and that, what happens? You change. Yeah? Yeah. So we have to have this fearless faith to keep moving, keep going forward, keep doing something different, probably, trying it a new way, but doing it. So I came across this book that I have on quotes, and I wanted to share some of them with you. Henry Ford, you can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. John Holcomb, you must get involved to have an impact. No one is impressed with the win-loss record of the referee. The American proverb, success is a ladder that cannot be climbed with your hands in your pocket. And the Swedish proverb, God gives every bird a worm, but he doesn't throw it into the nest. I believe we are here to recognize the truth of what we are. That we are this love, we are this peace, we are this joy in expression. And the way to do that is to seek first the kingdom, and all else will be added unto us. Seek first, what is it that God love would have me do? Be open and receptive. Ask, ask, ask. Listen to that still small voice. We were reminded in meditation, we can't hear that still small voice until we get still, until we get quiet. And so we listen to it. And then we have the fearless faith to take the steps to move forward for our divine plan, our divine design, not anybody else's. I still, to this day, have the little piece of paper that I wrote on January 8th, 2016, on the mirror of my bathroom. And I read it every day. It says, I cooperate with Spirit, knowing that every moment is contributing to my highest and best good. I cooperate with Spirit, knowing that every moment is contributing to my highest and best good. Because we have the option. We don't have to cooperate. We can do something else. And the way that we recognize that this moment is the moment that is for my highest and best good is because that's where I'm at. This is where I'm living right now, in this moment. I'm not living in the past. I'm not living in the future. I am knowing, accepting, being, feeling the truth of what I am, which is an expanded consciousness. You see, there's always more. There's infinite. That's why when they say, come up with your vision, it's something that you haven't done. And our rational, finite minds argue with that. Say, but how's that going to happen? They don't ask for the how. Get the feeling of what is it that Spirit is wanting to play with, work through, be through me. As I was going through this book, I actually had been ignoring it, but there was a little piece of paper in here. I think I put it back in here. And, yeah, there it is. And it's just this little teeny tiny thing with teeny tiny writing on it. I don't know, this is the first time I read this book is when I wrote this down. And I thought, we're coming up to the end of sharing the information in this book, and I guess this was kind of my little hot points or bullet points that I, at that time, gleaned from her writing. And I thought, well, I'm going to share these with you guys, So this is what they say. It says, there are 3 simple rules to winning the mind game. 3 simple rules. They are fearless faith, non-resistance, and love. All disease and unhappiness comes from the violation of the law of love. Send out real love, and real love will return to you. You can never receive what you have never given. A feeling of opulence must first precede its manifestation. You have to feel, be the person. In Mary Morrissey's classes, she has us do that little example the little exercise where we turn ourselves counterclockwise, and all of a sudden, oh, let me tell you about my life. Oh my gosh. Just wouldn't believe it. When we were back in that class, how many years ago now? Let me tell you what's all transpired since then. It's a new me. But you have to feel that. You have to know it. You have to anticipate. You have to feel the feeling of the gratitude, the excitement, the joy of it, correct? Non-resistance. None of these things move me. None of these things move me. Live freely in the now. Live freely in the now. Repetition is the key to real learning. I'm so reminded of this when my Martin Luther King Jr. Community Choir is on hiatus right now, but we're starting to go back in September. This next month we'll be back together again. And how we learn all of our songs is just literal repetition. There is no music. There are no words. He says the words. We repeat them. Then he starts singing the words, and we start singing and repeat and repeat and repeat. And so how does this link to having a better life? Not just learning words of a song? Repetition. Repetition. What are you telling yourself? What are you saying inside your head? What are you expecting? When you turn around and you see somebody you haven't seen for a few years, you're going to say, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. How great my life is. Repetition, repetition. I believe God, our life, is God's life. There is one life. It is the life of God, and it is our life. And we are here to do the best we can with it at every moment. So it's going to be different. It's going to evolve. It's going to show forth as newness, as growth, as evolution. Think about what you want. Feel what you want. Be there in consciousness. Bring your consciousness to the point of that higher vibration. And then, what's going to happen? You're going to have the joy of it. You're going to feel, thank you, the gratitude. Yes. Ah, what a relief. Everything is working out just fine. Right? Everything is working out just fine. I want to close with the affirmation that I had in our thought for the week. And that is, I love my life, for it is the life of God expressing perfectly as me. I love my life, for it is the life of God expressing perfectly as me. Can you say that? I love my life, for it is the life of God expressing perfectly through me. Turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I love my life, for it is the life of God expressing perfectly as me. Okay, now look at your neighbor again and say, your life is the life of God expressing perfectly as you. Your life is the life of God expressing perfectly as you. And so it is. So there. Namaste.